Lieutenant!
What?
You gotta see this.
Did you get to see him? Him? It wasn't a him, that was a it.
There was this Italian filmmaker, Bruno Mattei, who made an entire career out of ripping off Hollywood movies. He ripped off Aliens with something called Shocking Dark, which was actually marketed in some countries as Terminator 2, years before James Cameron made the actual Terminator 2. He even did his own version of Jaws with Cruel Jaws. The man had no shame, and honestly, you have to kind of respect the commitment. But Robowar was his masterpiece. This wasn't just inspired by Predator. This was a scene-by-scene, shot-by-shot, line-by-line recreation of Predator. Except instead of the Predator, they have a cyborg wearing a motorcycle helmet and a football uniform with sculpted abs. The lead is played by Reb Brown, who is basically the cheapest possible stand-in for Arnold Schwarzenegger you could find in 1988. He plays a guy named Major Murphy Black leading a team of commandos into a Philippine jungle. They get hunted by a government cyborg called Omega-1. Every single character from Predator has a low-rent equivalent. And here's the beautiful part. The script was co-written by the same team that would go on to make Troll 2, which is widely considered one of the worst films ever made. It's like the perfect storm of bad movie pedigree. Worth watching just for the sheer audacity of it. This one's different from the other Predator ripoffs because it actually had real talent behind it and nobody knew for years. Dolph Lundgren plays a Houston vice cop hunting a 7-foot alien drug dealer who murders humans by injecting them with massive heroin overdoses, then extracts their endorphins to manufacture some kind of intergalactic narcotic. There's also a good alien cop chasing the bad one. It's got Predator DNA, Terminator DNA, Lethal Weapon DNA all mashed together. The director was Craig Baxley, and here's what's interesting about him. He was the stunt coordinator on the original Predator. So when you watch I Come in Peace and notice that the action sequences and explosions are weirdly good for a B-movie, that's why. The guy knew what he was doing because he'd already done it on the real thing. But the bigger surprise is the screenwriter. The script was co-written under a pseudonym by David Koepp. If that name doesn't ring a bell, here's his resume. Jurassic Park, Mission Impossible, Spider-Man, and about a dozen other massive blockbusters. Nobody knew Koepp was involved with this movie for years until Baxley mentioned it in a Blu-ray featurette. The score was done by Jan Hammer, the guy who did Miami Vice. So you've got the stunt coordinator from Predator, the future writer of Jurassic Park, and the Miami Vice composer all working on a Predator ripoff. It's genuinely the most entertaining Predator ripoff out there, and it still bombed. Made $4.3 million against a $7 million budget. The Xtro franchise is one of the strangest things in B-movie history, because each film just rips off whatever was popular that year. The original Xtro from 1982 was actually a genuinely disturbing British body horror film. Then the sequel came out in 1990 and it was a shameless Aliens clone. So naturally, the filmmakers figured the next logical step was to rip off Predator. Except instead of the Predator, they have some milk-vomiting twig goblin creature. Same thing, right? The plot this time is that a platoon of Marines gets sent to a remote Pacific island. They're told it's to dispose of old munitions, but actually the US government conducted brutal experiments on captured aliens there back in the 50s, and one of them survived and wants revenge. The alien has a cloaking device in this prehensile tongue that shoots out and strangles people and covers them in goo. It's like someone took Predator and the X-Files and mashed them together with a budget that would barely cover catering on an actual film. Xtro 3 is technically better than Xtro 2, but that's not saying much. Worth watching only if you're the kind of person who needs to see every Predator ripoff ever made. By the time they got to the third Watchers movie, nobody seemed to remember what the first one was even about. The original was based on a Dean Koontz novel about a genetically engineered golden retriever with an IQ of 175 and a genetically engineered killing machine called the Outsider. Weird premise, but there was a book and there was a story. By Watchers 3, all of that was gone. Roger Corman executive produced it. They shot the whole thing in Peru, and somehow it had turned into a full Predator knockoff. The dog's still there, still genius-level intelligent, but now you've got Wings Hauser playing a court-martialed army officer who gets released from prison to lead a team of convicts into the jungle to hunt the outsider. It's an expendable suicide squad sent by the government to test their own creation. That's just the Predator setup with extra steps. They even gave the outsider thermal-style Predator vision. The practical gore effects here are surprisingly nasty. There's a scene where the outsider rips the flesh clean off a man's chest, and you can see his ribcage. For a straight-to-video sequel, someone was putting real work into the kills. This is the best film here by a wide margin, and it started with a napkin. Neil Marshall and producer Keith Bell are at a bar, they get drunk, and they draft a contract on a napkin for a werewolf movie. Marshall spent the next 6 years trying to get the thing funded. 6 years of pitching a film about British Army soldiers fighting werewolves in the Scottish Highlands, getting rejected, and pitching it again. Eventually, they found themselves at the American film market, where they ran into a spinach magnate named David Allen, who decided to become an investor. Sean Pertwee signed on before they even had the money, hoping that having his name attached would help get it made. Then he waited 1.5 years for production to actually start. That's how much he believed in it. Marshall was explicit about what he was making. I wanted the werewolves just to be essentially like the enemy, like the equivalent of aliens in Alien or Predator. It's Predator meets Night of the Living Dead, a squad of soldiers trapped in a farmhouse fighting something inhuman. This one is worth watching for the cast alone. Kevin McKidd went on to Grey's Anatomy in Rome. Liam Cunningham became Davos Seaworth in Game of Thrones. Darren Morfitt showed up in The Last Jedi. Marshall himself directed The Descent, one of the best horror films of the 2000s. He had a whole trilogy planned for Dog Soldiers. It's a shame it never happened. The first Nemesis was a Blade Runner meets Terminator cyberpunk thing. The sequel throws all of that out and becomes a straight Predator ripoff filmed in the Arizona desert. Budget was around $500,000. The plot is standard. In a future where humans lost the cyborg wars, scientists inject a baby with perfected DNA and send her back to 1980. The baby grows up to be Alex, and a cyborg bounty hunter named Nebula gets sent from the future to kill her. Alex is played by Sue Price, a professional bodybuilder. She competed nationally in bodybuilding, and her build is genuinely unlike anything you'd normally see in an action movie. Not the typical willowy action heroine at all. She cannot act, but she's an extraordinary physical presence. Nebula uses Predator-style cloaking for most of the runtime, which serves double duty. It makes the creature scarier, and it also hides the fact that the costume looks absolutely terrible when you see it clearly. They even recreate that scene from Predator where Schwarzenegger covers himself in mud to hide from thermal detection. The guy inside the Nebula suit was a kickboxer and aspiring martial artist named Chad Stahelski. At the time, he was just cutting his teeth in low-budget action movies. After this, Stahelski doubled Brandon Lee in The Crow, then he became Keanu Reeves' stunt double through the entire Matrix trilogy, and then he co-directed and directed every single John Wick film. The script for Split Second was written in 1988. It was called Pentagram back then, set in Los Angeles, an occult serial killer buddy cop movie. The writer, Gary Scott Thompson, had Harrison Ford in mind for the lead. By the time it got made in 1992, it was set in a flooded dystopian London of the year 2008. Rutger Hauer was the star, and nobody could agree on what the monster was supposed to be. A man? An alien? A mutant? They couldn't decide, and that indecision left creature designer Stephen Norrington with just 3 weeks to build the thing. Norrington had worked creature effects on Aliens and Alien 3, so he knew what he was doing. But 3 weeks is 3 weeks. The finished creature looks like someone threw Venom, a xenomorph, and the Predator into a blender. The original director, Tony Maylam, cracked under the stress of the production and walked off the film. Ian Sharp had to step in and finish it. It came out during the 1992 Los Angeles riots and bombed completely. and Gary Scott Thompson, the guy who wrote the original script in 1988, went on to create the Fast and Furious franchise. So at least someone landed on their feet.